Alright folks, this is lab number 2 for the 20533. We're going to start off by going to github.com/azure. Within this project there are many, within this subsite there are many projects, and we're looking for the templates, the Azure Quick Start templates. So scroll down to 101 VM, 101 VNet 2 subnets, and we'd like to deploy to Azure. So let's take a look at this template and see what it contains. So in this template, parameters is what's required that we have to provide to deploy a copy of this template. So we have to provide these parameters, and you'll see that later on we will click on edit parameters, and this document provides information to this tool to render the user interface. So we'll need a VNet address, subnet 1, subnet 2. So this is something we need to provide. Prefix, subnet name. Okay. So again, these parameters is what will be asked of us if we would like to deploy a template into our environment. Alright, we are not going to change the template, so we'll discard that. The parameters. So now we have a V2 VNet. Now V2 VNet is the one that runs under resource management model, the ARM model. The setup Azure for the Lab 2 configures the ADATM subnet that we'll use in exercise 3. And that's a V1 network. Alright, going to click on OK and send this. Now we're going to set up a resource group as well as select a region for this VNet. So after select the region, we'll select the legal terms. Make sure we click on purchase. And select create. Now a message on top will indicate that deployment has begun. And in a short moment this deployment will finish. We'll move on to exercise 2 and then come back to check on this. Alright, so here we're going to create a virtual network using Powershell this time. So first log into our resource management account. Sign into Azure. Alright, our next commandlet will create a resource group called ADATM Test RG resource group located in East US. Now this creates a new RM Resource Manager virtual network under the resource group ADATM Test RG with the name ADATM Test VNet. This is going to be a 10.0.0/16 network in the East US. Alright, so once the creation of the VNet virtual network finishes, the variable $VNet now points to what we have just created. Now we're going to take this class, /16, and further divide them into a subnetwork called front end. In subsequent lab, we will be deploying virtual machines to the front end that serves as the web server. So here we're going to add a new subnet called front end to the virtual network VNet. Now the change that we perform will be local in the PowerShell's memory space. And we need to call the set Azure RM virtual network to save the changes back to the Azure. So notice when we did the add, it happens locally. Okay, so our local variable registers that there is a new VNet, and then we set Azure Virtual Network. Now it makes the round trip to the server to actually create the network and the subnet. Now we can navigate to our portal. Now from our resource browser, you can click on Browse and search for virtual network. You can see that we have the HQ that's deployed by using the template, a data test VNet, which is created through the Powershell. Now we also have a classic virtual network that was created through the setup Azure commandlet that we run at the beginning of the lab exercise. So this is the A datum branch VNet. This is a classic network. Our next exercise is to set up a gateway for this network. Now while you're looking at this network from the new portal, the classic network, notice at the bottom there is a diagram for this network where the VPN connection says gateway. We can click here to create a gateway. Alright, now if we go ahead and create a gateway here, we will be creating a V2 gateway where it will automatically create a subnet for this gateway to reside under. And you select the size. And you can choose the throughput. Standard throughput, high performance throughput. Okay. Now we can also create a V1 gateway. And notice we're here at manage.windowsazure.com. Okay. And we are at our networks. Now notice in this classic portal, when you go to the network section, you notice it only give you access to the classic network V1. So let's click on the virtual network, and in our dashboard, the gateway is created simply by clicking here and say we want dynamic routing, and go and say yes, this is going to take about 20 minutes to create the gateway, so we're going to take a quick pause. But the gateway is then responsible for accepting VPN requests between a separate machine for point to virtual network VPN or a site-to-site VPN. Alright, so we're going to wait a bit. This will take quite some time. We'll proceed to the next task is to deploy a new virtual machine into our V2 virtual network. So we're going to switch over to the new portal and provision the virtual machine, a V2 virtual machine. Alright, so the V2 virtual machine, we're given a script. As part of running the script, it will ask us to sign in with our Azure subscription. Alright, so to recap what we have accomplished by running this script, we will be deploying a new V2 virtual machine into the HQ network that was created earlier. Now, to make sure that that is really what's happening, let's open up the lab files and take a quick walkthrough. So here's a starter folder, and create virtual machine.ps1. This is the one we just ran. So we're going to put a new server called ARM SRV2 under the resource group ADatum Lab RG in the virtual network called HQ. This is the one we did through the template from the GitHub. Log into the resource manager, and the standard one, show subscription, and allow users to pick a subscription. Now try to pick up the virtual network named HQ, and we're going to create a VM in the same location as the VNet. Alright, so the important thing here is we're going to go in and create a new virtual machine through the script. Now a couple of things that's interesting is that we are creating a storage account. This storage account is where the VHD of the virtual machine will be stored, and it will be built accordingly. This storage account will be in the same resource group and will be a standard local replicated storage. This virtual machine will receive connectivity through a public IP. That will be the name of the NIC that receives the public IP. So here is our request to receive a request for a public IP in our resource group. Alright, now we have a public IP address in our variable $pip. Create a NIC that is bound to that pip in a given subnet. So this network card will exist in the first subnet of HQ and will be accessible through a public IP. The next series of command builds up the VM variable with the virtual machine configuration, the operating system, the source image where the virtual machine will be cloned from. Now here's the NIC that we configured earlier, the storage account for the operating system disk. Alright, so folks, take a few minutes, go through these slides, make sure you understand what's going on. And this will provision a new virtual machine. The line 56 actually make the new Azure RM creation request. The $VM contains all the configuration settings, and in one go we give it to the server and say, hey, please go ahead and create a VM as such. Alright. Alright, so once this is done, the VM will be created, and I conclude the exercise, the lab A of module 2. Now to quickly visualize what's happening, what we have created during this lab, I'll try to put it on the diagram. So over here we have a V1 network called ADatum branch. And in this branch there is a gateway that we have created. This is the one that takes a while. We also have an HQ network. Now in that HQ network we have just deployed another V2 virtual machine. This is V2 called HQ. Now in the next lab exercise, by the way, the blue one stands for virtual machine in that network. Okay. In the next exercise, we'll create a point to site VPN that dials into that gateway. And we will also, in next lab, connects this to VNet by using a VNet to VNet VPN. So this concludes Lab 2.